I'm Dr. Katie Mayer. I am your host of The Hardest Part is Getting In podcast and newsletter. And this is my first cousin, Dr. Brendan Batt. Brendan and I go way back. Obviously, we were like 11 months apart.
Yep.
And we were raised very, very close
Basically
together.
like brother-sister relationship.
Yep, thankfully. And Brendan gave me a lot of thick skin as a young kid. And now Brendan is a mixed animal veterinarian, a business owner, and an adventurer. Well, you think that's a good title?
That's pretty good.
I think
I'll
so.
take that.
Okay, good. Well, Brendan is one of the most interesting people that I've ever met, and I'm so grateful that he agreed to come and talk about his journey in veterinary medicine and just in his life. So why don't you jump right in? Tell us about like where you grew up, where you went to school, that kind of thing. Set the scene for everybody.
Okay, I grew up in Louisiana, Metairie, which is near New Orleans, and I guess my interest in animals has always been there. You know, just as a kid, loved dogs and wildlife and all that, and then as a hunter and fisherman, also kind of had an interest in biology just from, cleaning animals and, seeing how all the systems work, and just the curiosity was there. And then I worked with your dad, kind of from adolescence into all the way up until I was in veterinary school. And that's the path I took, basically.
Okay.
Other than that, something that was a little different, I was a creative writing major instead of like biology or animal sciences. And I really did that because I felt like that coursework was going to be easier for me to stay with a higher GPA versus biology, where I had to take statistics and other physics and stuff where math was not my strength. English and writing was much easier for me to get really high grades in, so I took that path, and I think that it turned out to play as an advantage on my transcript application.
Oh yeah, well, Brendan's an incredible writer. You always have been, even when you were young. And so just to clarify, you were an English major, but you took all the prerequisites and then applied to vet school.
Right.
Okay. When did you decide, like, I want to go to vet school? Very young, do you think? Or like in high school? Or when you and Dave were kind of talking?
I think somewhere in high school decided that, definitely going into college, I felt that I was pretty strongly feeling that that's what I was going to do. Once the ambitions of like being a football player, or like, that kind of astronaut or something, like anything like that, they wore off after a minute, then yeah, I thought it would be a good career for me.
Yeah, well, I think that is proven well. Very good decision. Okay, so do you feel that being an English major was an advantage, not just to your GPA, but maybe to your application?
I do think so. I've kind of heard that from in the application process, and in my second application process. I think just a diverse major, anything, because most people's applications are going to be very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone worked at a small animal hospital. Everybody took biology and animal science, and then the animal club and blah blah blah. So they really, I think, and you would know this because you were on one of those interview committees, and I think just having something that stands out a little bit, no matter what it is, unless it's something criminal, anything like that just sets you apart, because everyone's going to have good grades and some work experience and, decent test scores. So I think when they're making those like final decisions to have like diversity in your major or whatever that makes you stand out a little bit, or something that you even say in your interview or anything like that, that in a way can put you above the pack a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, it gives you a lot to talk about in your interview, and it gives you a lot to write about in your essays. Makes you different. Okay, so how many times did you apply to vet school? Tell me about that whole process.
So I applied once, and then I got waitlisted, and then I reapplied the following year, and I was admitted on the second application.
Okay. What was that like? What did you do in the middle, in that like interim year?
Well, I don't know if it's like good advice exactly what I did, because I was told I was going to get in, the next year, and I even asked the administrator I was meeting with, like, what can I do? And he said, really, you don't have to do anything other than, take that one class that would help my GPA a little bit. Other than that, I had a year off, so I pursued other interests outside of veterinary medicine.
Like what? I don't remember this part of your life.
I got my captain's license.
Okay.
I ran some charters, and I climbed Denali that year too.
Okay.
And
So to clarify, we live in Louisiana. This is Lake Pontchartrain back here. Brendan lives right on the levee. A levee is like a big lump of, how do you describe a levee? So we don't flood.
on the other side of the levee here.
By the levees.
There's no levee.
There is no levee,
No
that's
levee
right.
to protect you out here.
So Brendan lives in this super cool boathouse, just back through here at the marina. Probably just gave up all your security. And Brendan has been fishing and hunting since a very, very young age, which is a big part of living in Louisiana. We live in Louisiana, in the sportsman's paradise. And our family is very fortunate to have a bunch of members that like provide meals for us. I've never bought fish at a supermarket ever. I didn't even really know how to do that. We have freezers full of meat, and we, respect every part of every animal that is hunted or fished. And I do remember when you were applying to vet school, do you remember what you wrote about, or didn't you write something about being a hunter and like conservation? Because it's that can be a hard question in an interview too.
I wrote about duck hunting and my relationship with my hunting dog, and also just that how like just having a fascination with animals as a duck hunter, how that like brought me into wanting to be a vet, and I put that into the essay. And again, that kind of makes you stand out, because most people who hunt may be trying to hide that on their admission, instead of saying, look, I think animals are fascinating. Like, I'm gonna eat wild game. You can eat processed animals that, are living in stockyards and chicken houses.
Right.
And so like ethically, and that question did come up, and I had a good answer like that, that when you shoot a deer, he lived in a wild circumstance, and then he's shot with a lethal shot, versus a cow that goes through production status, and that's not a good life.
No.
So
right.
I was kind of ready with those kind of answers, because I knew the essay was a little bit controversial.
Yeah, but it probably grabbed their attention.
And then I also leaned on the fact that, as a hunter and just a waterfowl conservationist, someone like me who hunts is actually putting more into the resource than taking out of it. Like shooting, 70 ducks a year for one person, who's paying a license and is a member of conservation organizations that are rebuilding habitat, things like that. Actually, I'm putting more ducks into the population than the average person, even though I'm a duck hunter.
I never would have thought of that angle. Pretty good. Okay, so, and then do you remember anything else about the process as far as like interview tips for anybody, or like anything that you think, I don't know, any advice in that respect with your essays and interviews?
I think with the interviews, you just gotta kind of just be yourself and try not to be nervous.
Yeah, but everybody's nervous.
Which is easy to say, but you don't want to come off as too nervous and too reserved. And, I think in a way you can sell yourself short by, seeming really introverted and nervous kind of afraid of the situation, whereas someone who's kind of outgoing and tries to engage a little bit more in the interview instead of acting like, you're on trial and, hitting questions,
defensive.
life and death kind of thing. If you more engage in conversation, I think that's what they want to see. That's the whole point of the interview. It's like, how does this person converse with others?
They want to be able to visualize you
pressure and,
with the
things
clients.
like that.
And I think you don't have to be an extrovert to be a good vet, and you definitely don't have to be an extrovert to get into vet school, but they do want to see that you can carry on a conversation.
Right.
And like, they want to see your kind of thought process. Sometimes they'll ask you some hard questions, like ethics questions, or like put you in a situation, and they just want to watch how you respond. And you don't have like just jet out of there. You have to have something to say and like argue for yourself.
Right. Yeah. They asked me if your best friend in vet school found the test for the next day, would you turn him in?
And what'd you say?
I said I wouldn't turn him in.
Yeah.
I felt like that was the right answer. I wouldn't do it.
I think that's the right answer.
I feel like
I think I would say I wouldn't look at it.
No, I told him I would tell. I wouldn't look at it, but I told the guy he shouldn't do it and he should turn himself in.
Yeah. But I wouldn't
turn him in.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's going pretty far.
Yeah, for a test. I think I would rat on somebody if it like we're gonna affect an animal's health.
Right. That's a totally different thing. But I think that's a difficult question because if I'm on the interview staff and you tell me your very best friend, you're going to turn him in and end his vet school career and all that, based off one mistake that he made, and it's not your job to do that anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a loaded question.
It's a loaded question. It is really hard.
Different ways.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the questions that they would ask you to like just put you on your heels and be like, what's he going to say?
Watch you. Yep, I completely agree.
And they probably don't ask everybody that, but sometimes they're just like, a good person to ask that to see, because you might answer the other way around.
Okay, so tell me about like in vet school in general. What did you hate? What did you love? Best parts, hardest parts.
I feel like what I didn't like about it was a few things. I felt like the way it was structured with the classwork and the labs, like that could have been better done, where like you're doing the labs and then you're doing the classwork kind of like woven together instead of eight months later you're in the lab learning the stuff you learned a year ago, and it's not like that hard to do it that way. It just would take better coordination. I'm sure some vet schools do that a little bit better.
That's a good one.
I didn't like that. I also didn't like some of the structure of like how they teach you in vet school, where it's like just tremendous rote memorization of not even necessarily the most important things to clinical relevance and science. Instead, I just remember like having to learn little tiny branches of arteries at the same level that you had to learn the major ones and the ones of significance, because they would try to find ways to get you to have a wrong answer, basically.
Yeah, they did.
Where they should have really been just ask me more questions about the carotid and the,
like clinical application of that. Can you tie off a carotid in a dog? And will it live?
Exactly. Stuff like that instead of branches and,
Yeah. I don't think that's going to change though.
I don't think so either. But, other than that, I would just say it's a grind. Vet school's 4 years where you're just gonna be working hard, but
we can do it. Anybody else can do it.
Parts of it that are real enjoyable. Once you get in, you just gotta grind it out.
You just gotta survive. I think one of the best parts for me was meeting people. Like our classmates got pretty tight. I know y'all had a really tight class. And
that helps you get through it.
Yeah.
I had like a group that I studied most of the time with.
I studied by myself the first year and did like okay. And then as soon as I started studying with different groups of people, and sometimes it was one group for one class and then another group for the other classes. But whenever I started studying with groups, I did much better. And it makes you show up.
Right.
They show up to the
And-
library or wherever you're
Yeah,
gonna
if you
study.
have like, if you really have ADD, like I think I do, and you're
Yeah, you definitely do.
unmedicated, trying to study at your house can be
Yeah.
really hard. Because
Yeah.
I would sit there and be like, all right, I got to study, but my room's not clean. I got to clean my room. And I'm like, oh, this reel's not working. Let me take this thing apart.
Yeah.
I'm like doing anything. Oh, I need to
Anything
do my
but.
laundry. Like,
Oh yeah.
so
I
it
remember
was
like,
good for me to like leave my house
yeah,
because I got to meet the people I'm studying with.
held accountable, got to be there and
just
finish
grind it out.
this much
And me and 4 other people did that
for years.
3 years, basically 2.5 years. That helped me stay on track. And then like, if you missed class because you were studying for another test, like one of the other 4 would be in that class, getting all the notes or whatever the teacher says. You know, I know this, highlight this kind of
Right.
thing.
Help you out for what you
so
missed.
it's good to have that. In addition, it was good to have other people to discuss concepts with, because sometimes you wouldn't understand something well enough, and then one of the people in the group could explain it
Right.
to you, and then a week later you'd be doing that to the other person. So,
Right, for a
I
different,
learned well, like discussing it instead of just sitting at looking at PowerPoint. So
yeah, oh God, the PowerPoints. And then what was your best or favorite clinical rotation? Like, was there one that surprised you that you loved?
I liked like the with that Dr. Mirza, like the large animal.
Mhm.
Large animal
He's
class
still there.
because he's still there. We still share cases. I still send him a lot of
Yeah,
bad
such a nice guy. Oh God.
Yeah, he doesn't like to hear calls from me, but he was a really good mentor too for years. I could call him and ask him anything.
So that actually brings me to my next question, which is, once you graduated, what did you do? Who helped you? Like, I kind of forgot about your first year. Tell me about your first year out after you
I
graduated.
graduated. This is kind of interesting. I was gonna go work at a clinic. I went and flew to Florida, St. Augustine, and met with a guy who had a mixed animal practice that was looking for like a young vet. And we hit it off. He threw me into the wolves and made me do some surgeries. And I stayed at his house for 3 days.
What kind of vet was he?
Like a mixed animal vet.
Okay.
He had 2 or 3 clinics. And
Wow, I
very
did not know you
successful.
did that.
And he had kind of started from like nothing.
Right.
And he had this big practice and 2 or 3, and then I stayed at his house. Like we hit it off. He made me an offer. And then like about a month later, I like countered him a little bit. And then he was like, no, I'm out. And then I asked him, like, I was like, all right, man, what's going on here? Like, is that $5,000 like extra?
That
He's
big
like,
of a
no.
deal?
He's like, no, I should have told you this anyway, out of respect. Like, I'm selling everything.
Oh my God.
And I don't
Good
I
for
don't
him.
care who I hire now. I just have to like manage it for a year or 2.
Yeah, make it
You're like a
productive.
gung-ho dude. You're gonna do well, but like it's not mine anymore, so I don't care.
I'm glad he told you.
Yeah, because I was kind of like, wow, I shouldn't have said anything.
Right.
I'll take the old deal.
We're supposed to do that.
Take the old deal.
Oh
And-
man.
And then so there was a local vet that also did some mixed animal stuff, and
Over here.
yeah, he was maybe interested in selling his practice and taking on a young vet at some point too. So I started working with him,
Okay.
and I worked with him for a year.
Okay. Did you learn a lot?
I learned a lot. I learned a good bit about equine medicine.
He was equine only?
No, he was
Mixed.
predominantly probably 70% small.
Okay.
And then I was his like mobile equine vet. So
Oh yes.
he was like training me, and he was sending me out on like, it's like your first like choke, go.
Yeah.
This is how you do it. You gotta do it. All right.
He taught you like in his office, this is how to deal with it. And then he sent you off in the
Yeah.
truck. Did you have somebody help you? Like ride with? Just you. Do you feel that most equine mobile vets are riding alone?
Yeah.
They always have a person with them?
Yeah, like once I was doing that on my own, not under his business, I tried to always have someone. It is
Yeah.
a way you can't be efficient or safe enough really, to do it all by yourself,
Mhm.
especially including the record keeping.
Oh
You
gosh.
can't
Don't even think
be
about that stuff.
vaccinating and stitching and doing all this stuff with the horses, staying safe and somehow keeping records straight and doing
Right.
paperwork and cognizance. It's
Cognizance,
and
right.
really to do it properly, because a lot of horse owners do not handle their horses well. Like an older lady or someone who just doesn't know what they're doing. So you want your person there holding the
Mhm.
horse while you're
The way you
doing
like it.
things, because there's
Can't
a lot
trust.
of there's risk.
Yeah, definitely.
And
you're out in the middle of nowhere sometimes, not much help to call on.
yeah,
Well,
so I was just like out there just rolling with it. It was fun. I mean, look, it was exactly what I was looking for at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Okay, so you worked for him for 1 year. Why did you leave?
It wasn't working out for
Yeah,
a number of reasons, and then I had a life opportunity, and I wanted to get my 2 weeks vacation that year, and he said he like refused to basically give me 2 weeks, and I was like, well, every one of my classmates got 2 weeks vacation at least,
Yeah.
and he's like, I just don't see it, and I was like, all right, well, that's it.
Okay.
So,
What was your life opportunity?
it was a climb, the Cartens Pyramid,
Where's that?
Indonesia.
Indonesia. So, tell our audience about some of your hobbies.
So I like high altitude mountaineering and free diving,
Yeah.
spearfishing, rock climbing, those kind of sports.
Okay. So these big mountain climbs you would do always with at least a Sherpa, usually with a buddy.
Yeah.
And maybe one a year, every other year-ish
Yeah, something
sometimes.
like that on
Okay.
average.
So y'all were like, we're going to Indonesia to do this climb, and this guy
Yeah,
would give you time
and
off, and he said, peace out.
yeah, and then it lined up to where my climbing partner at the time was getting like a partial sponsorship from this company to do it.
Oh, nice.
So it was like a financial
Yeah.
opportunity to do it at a much reduced price. And so that was it. We shook hands, and when I came back, it was like,
What did you do when you came back?
I was like, damn, now what do I do? So when I was the year I did work for him, a lot of people had told me, like some people I was going out to the barns, like, you should do this on your own. So I basically kind of for about a week just organized myself and made sure I had the equipment that I needed to go on barn calls and some basic dog and cat meds and equipment that I needed to do some basic stuff on the go.
Was that hard to like establish a relationship with like drug companies and shipping stuff and dealing with like controlled drugs? Like, that must have been pretty overwhelming to just start from scratch.
Kind of, it was a little bit, but you just kind of start small. I wasn't dealing with like 8 drug companies like we do now, and like shopping everything perfectly. I had like one rep that I would talk to, and then I used a compounder. At the time, a lot more drugs were being compounded, that you compound a lot of drugs. So primarily the drugs people got from me were compounded.
Huh. Okay. Okay. So you got everything straight and you decided, I'm going to go out on my own in my truck.
Yeah. And then I started like going
small and large, or just horses and small animals? Everything.
Because every horse owner has 2 dogs and a cat.
Right.
So they started asking me about that. So I would just have all worm stuff, like almost everything. And I would just go out. I kind of like went out to barns around.
Did you advertise?
Yeah, advertise.
I put up, I gotta get my hands
had some that. Some nice flyers I would put up that I made.
You made them yourself?
Yeah, there's good ones too.
I bet. I'm sure they were not boring.
Stole some art off the internet and like messed with it. So I put those up with like price advertising and things like that I knew was cheaper than the other beds.
Right.
And it didn't take long because like there's not a lot of this area is not the best place to be an equine vet, so people come and go. So it didn't take more than 6-8 months to become like the main equine vet in this area. And it's enough to have a career, but it wouldn't be a good career by itself because it's a lot of low income. People can't afford the type of cases and injuries that occur. So you get stuck with the bill.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
And then it's a lot of emergency after hour stuff.
Yeah,
So
people get home and then they realize everything's
Exactly.
sick.
So
Yeah. Okay, so how long did you do that for? And you were, just like you said, not to do, going out in a truck by yourself most of the time, right?
yeah.
So you got our other cousin Chris
Yeah,
involved. He was like your ride along and kind of like helped you keep your records.
Kept my records and he'd hold horses and stuff. He became somewhat of a horseman.
Yeah, I love it. I know he loved it. Okay, so how long did y'all do that?
About 18 months, 2 years almost.
Okay, then what?
So then I started building like a decent clientele and more dogs and cats.
Mhm.
So I was trying to get some little piece of office space where I could actually do spays, neuters, like basic stuff.
Mhm.
And kind of like get more of just a footprint.
Mhm.
And eventually just word of mouth through the horse community. There was like a barn that had a little house there. And so we rented that. And then I recruited my brother, who was already like established, really good, very, very top notch vet, 5 years, a senior to me. And I was able to recruit him to come down once I kind of had that space settled. And then we just grew from there.
Right. So David was in my class, so we're 5 years above you. Okay. And so I guess that's what was one of my questions initially is like, when did y'all start having this dream of having like two brothers veterinary clinic?
I don't know. It kind of
Like maybe
evolved.
when he started?
It kind of evolved. Yeah. I think when he was in vet school, when I was like
You're an undergrad.
when I was like committing myself to going to vet school, we had
Mhm.
had some conversations and kind of moving in that direction.
Yeah. And then when you came back, you got the place with the stables and the small little like rental house.
Right. Because he couldn't just like, he couldn't just step off a cliff and just like go
Right.
looking for clients. So,
And he had a dependent too.
right. Exactly. So, that's how it started.
It started very small. Do you want to describe that little clinic, that like the little room with the curtain?
Yeah. So we were just trying to make most efficient use of our space.
There's probably like 700 square feet total, including the waiting room,
Yeah.
plus a couple of stables.
Yeah, maybe 650. And so, and we had like a couple tables, like islands of tables. And we do exams and surgeries on them. And they're so crowded and so busy that people had to wait outside by a dumpster
Yep.
and cross train tracks to get there. And
By foot.
we didn't have any room in the lobby. There was
no lobby. The lobby was the size of this picnic
It's like
table.
a chair, so people just had to wait outside. And then when they did get in
Louisiana heat,
we
which
had,
is like
we
9
had
months a year.
curtains in between, almost like you'd see in like a third world, like
The third world emergency room.
like war triage kind of thing.
Yeah, we would like give me some privacy while I do the C-section.
Pull the
curtain shut.
Be doing like an exam or something
in the other
3 feet over
curtained off area. But it worked, profitable enough. And then as you grew and grew, y'all found a bigger place that you completely redid.
Yeah, like I remember someone asking me like, do you have an occupational license for that place? And this is after like a year and a half I had.
At the small place?
I was like, what?
What's that?
Don't worry about it. Just roll with it.
Just come on in.
It's kind of how I did when I got out and on the equine thing, it was like, I just got to take every case and just keep rolling and just
can't say no to anybody.
Don't say no to anybody and just like kind of believe that big things have small beginnings,
100%.
It's if you're able to speak to people and connect with people, they'll like you as a vet, even if it's
Yeah, and they will trust you.
Truth. You have a good personality and you're able to level with people and like just on an emotional level and just talk to them like someone in a family would talk to them or a friend would talk to them about their animals. you will be successful as a veterinarian. Even if you're terrible at surgery, you don't know anything about medicine, you still will have success.
Yeah, it's very important to be able to communicate with people is more than just like dictating out what the disease process is that you're worried about. I think it's connecting with them and also having just a tiny bit of like, I've seen a lot of cases do really well, even with this diagnosis, putting their mind at ease a little bit so they can like relax that fight or flight when you're explaining like what kind of, not a great diagnosis to somebody. And then they keep coming back. Once they connect with you and they realize like you've got their back, you're on the same side. That's what I'll try to get across to my clients. It's like, we're on the same side.
Yeah.
We're on Spot's side, and I'm not like push pull with you. We want to do what you want to do, So I think you're right because clearly you had enough clientele to follow you, fund your like purchase and rehab, I guess you'd call it, of the big new building that y'all are in. And now you have how many vets total? 4?
3 now.
3?
3.
Full time?
Yeah, 3 full time. And we had a 4th. We'd still kind of use it, but.
Yeah. And then you've got a lot of surgery going in and out of there. One of the most interesting things about y'all's practice is like that you took this tiny piece of veterinary medicine that a lot of people are scared of and just dove right in and made it into a huge part of your practice and therefore like really kept it going. And I think I'm sure, it pays a lot of bills, and that's Therio, which is funny because David came so close to failing Therio and like having to go back to first year when we were third years that to imagine like the look on our professor's face that really disliked him because he had mandatory theriology labs and he just did not consider them mandatory. So he had like an F and he needed a D, or he had a D and he needed a C, or something like that. And took a team of us to help him graduate in that class. So now Therio is a huge part of y'all's practice. Lots of artificial inseminations and surgical inseminations and C-sections and progesterone running, and
we do more C-sections than any clinic in the South.
That's crazy. I could see that. I filled in for y'all one time and I did 3 C-sections before we started seeing clients at 9 a.m.
It's like that.
Yeah, it was wild. So y'all are good at identifying something and like that maybe just a little bit uncomfortable that would induce a little anxiety in most general practitioners and just be like, nope, let's do it.
Well, I think up front, people are very prejudiced towards breeders and bulldog breeders. So for them to have a vet that's on their side and like, look, let's try to get them bred. Let's do what, they're going to do this.
They're going to do it either way.
They're going to do whatever they're going to do anyway. So you may as well do your best to keep their pets healthy and give them advice on what to do and try to tell them, put them on heartworm meds. And, you try to educate them. And a lot of these people, they take better care of their dogs than anyone.
Yeah.
They're not all locked up in kennels and stuff
right.
like that, especially the bulldogs. Like a lot of these people, this is their whole life.
Yeah.
So
they'll do anything to keep them
safe.
There's
a prejudice there, and if you are willing to be their vet, and there's loyalty that's not going away.
That's a really good point.
And it's a specialty to where like not every vet can just do a very successful C-section and have the puppies come out, powerful and right, and we're doing surgery on the highest risk patients you can dream up.
Oh yeah.
Exotic bulldogs. So they have tons of, congenital heart issues and things like that. So
breathing.
So we do that surgery too. So,
That's right. The brachycephalic syndrome. Dove right into that.
I feel like sometimes you have to follow like leads in life. And that's one that David, he kind of knew some stuff about repro from where he had worked before. And then when he came down here 6 months in, we were getting some bulldog people, and the big step was like buying a progesterone machine, because that was prior to the Catalyst IDEX, where you can just use the slide. So we invested like 30 grand into a machine. We were the only people in New Orleans that were running it.
It was same day, right? like
Yeah,
1 hour. or
That was
something.
like an hour.
Where
Yeah,
most of the
maybe
time you send it off, it's a 1 day turnaround, which is hard with progesterone because tell them what you're trying to do with progesterone.
You're just trying to measure ovulation and time when to breed the dog.
And reverse progesterone to tell when to cut,
Exactly.
when to start the C-section induce. So that probably really increased your efficacy. And also like you're not spending your money, no offense to the labs, but you're not giving the money to the labs. You pay for the
Right, you're
machine.
running
Once it's
it
paid off, yeah, in-house labs are where it's at. Okay. What do you love about owning a business with your brother? Like, do y'all love being business owners? There's a lot of like housekeeping and employment is always hard, and like being like y'all are the HR department as well. So like what is the best part and what is the worst part of being your own boss? We already got like a little taste of the fact that you like to go on extreme vacations. So besides like having a lot of freedom, I mean you have a ton of freedom though. Y'all really have a ton of freedom with travel and but also your day to day, like you get to go wakeboarding every morning.
Well, the thing is, I mean, honestly, the truthful thing is if you're gonna own a business as a vet, like unless you're able to really grow it to where other vets can run it, like you're gonna have to be
You have to be there.
a guy who's there all the time because
Mhm.
it's not can't sell it. Like you are the magic sauce,
Mhm.
and that's it.
It's hard to replicate yourself.
Right? You can't just, especially like as a business owner, they want to see
Yeah.
someone if they have the option to see someone that's a business owner or that's names on the building. That's what
who
they
wanna
want. And they
see.
really don't want to see anyone else.
And it is hard to come in
That's kind
as
of
the other
it's
person.
kind of, yeah, no, that's true.
100%. I saw that. I felt that.
Yeah,
It used to hurt, but now I'm like, it's fine.
yeah, you can see that one.
Yeah.
So I think just dealing with employees is probably one of the most
Yeah, you got
the
like the
hardest
whole
part.
vibe in there. People aren't always jiving, and
People complain about this one and that one, and it's just like that kind of
it eats up your
workplace
time.
drama. That's the most aggravating part of
Mhm.
business ownership. I think the best part of it isn't really like getting time off because I don't really think, like I said, as a vet, you can't, even if you own the business,
just
you're
step
not just
away.
going to be like, I'm going to be gone for all this time and
Right,
it's going to be
right.
all right. It's not like that. I think the best part is when you hear somebody or something say, man, that they're the best.
Yeah.
They did the best for my dog and they saved my dog. And those guys,
Yeah,
that's the best part.
that's where it's at.
Yeah.
I completely agree. To get compliments and especially to get referrals.
Right. And you just have like this sense of pride, like, look, we built this.
Yeah.
And now people, this is what they think about us.
Yeah.
Good.
And as everybody knows, like people's pets, they are their family.
Right.
And so it means so much to be entrusted with their care and to a lot of times have a sick dog or cat or horse, turn them around and, walk out the door with the tail wagging and like a grateful owner. It is a pretty good feeling.
Yeah.
It really is. I agree. So like what other challenges have you come across in your life that you think our listeners might like glean some
Well,
feelings from?
I think for the most part, if you want to be a veterinarian, you just have to commit 100% to it.
Mhm.
And if you can't get in to schools in the States, you go to a school in the Caribbean and you create a bunch of debt. But you don't want to be one of those people that comes into my office and says, I always wanted to be a vet, but
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
hear that every day. And if you really is your dream, you should chase it with everything you have. And if you get a bunch of debt from going to school in the Caribbean, so what? You fulfilled your dream. You'll pay it off down the road.
Right.
I think that is the most important thing you have to have when you're in this application process, and that kind of never quit attitude about it. That being said, sometimes it's not meant to be and it's impossible. And, moving on from that can be a hard
Really
thing,
hard.
but you don't want to, at any form in life, narrow yourself down to where you are defined by your job or any one aspect in your life,
Mhm.
because when you're setting yourself up for failure, but also life is such a interesting experience that it'd be wasted to really box yourself into committing to one thing that hard that it can affect you so negatively.
And you see a lot of people, I mean, you have to commit so much of your life to getting into vet school, and then you have to commit like 99% of your life, it feels like, while you're in vet school, just keep going, keep going, keep going. And then, you know, the day-to-day life, once you get out, is consumed by it as well. But after about like 10 years, you do see vets like pop up and they're like, what are my other hobbies? And you can't just have veterinary medicine, because you have to have other things in your life. Once you kind of get over the hard part, I hate to say that, like getting in and being in school, that is the hard part. And getting out's kind of hard too. But then like it does get so much easier that you need other challenges in your life, not just to define you, but like also to like just give you, I don't know, creativity and stimulate you.
I couldn't agree more. I think because sometimes it can be a tedious job, and even when you kind of get mundane to it, there's still a lot of emotion, and there's, you got to have outlets and ways to like some way to express creativity, and also to just enjoy other aspects of life. Because if veterinary medicine is your whole life, it's not going to be that great of a life. Obviously, you got to have other stuff going on.
That's pretty interesting statement, but I completely agree. You do have to have other things going on. You can't define yourself with this like job. And it is more than a job. It really is. It's like, it gives you so much, you do put a lot in, but you do get a lot out, mainly from the patients and especially from the clients. But you do have to have other things. So it's important to keep those areas of your life going. And I think that does, like, we as a profession have extremely high, risk of suicide. And I think it's because there are so many emotions. There's a lot of pressure. But if you keep those like things that you're interested in going outside of veterinary medicine, I think it really decreases your chances. I hate to say that. I probably don't know for sure. I mean, I am no statistician.
I think for sure, just having other things going on in your life makes the day-to-day issues with veterinary medicine a lot easier to swallow.
Yep. I agree. Is there anything else that you would tell yourself when you were, let's say, like just got that wait list letter or a denied letter? What would you tell yourself?
I think going back to what I said a few minutes ago, that really two things. If this is really, really what you want to do, just apply 30 times if you have to. Go to the Caribbean, go out of the country, move to another country where the application process is easier. If it's really what you want to do that bad, you should just do it, no matter what it takes. But if it's something that you applied for and you didn't get in, and it doesn't look like you're going to get in, life is a million different avenues that you can go down. And if it looks like that big of a stop sign, it's probably a sign to pivot and do something else. And I know that's hard to swallow, but I think it probably is meant to be. And it doesn't mean that you can't do something great with your life or have a career in animal medicine or sciences. Right. There's a lot of other opportunities out there, but I wouldn't, go into a deep depression over it. I think anyone who applies to vet school like faces that idea or reality that, like, man, what if I don't get in? What if I can't do this? Or what if something eliminates me from doing this? And when it's your dream, that can be really hard to face that. But you have to take perspective and look at all the other options you have, and just kind of follow your heart, follow those leads, and you'll find something else. I've never been in that exact position, so
yeah, it's
until
hard.
You're like thrown in there, you don't know how you would feel or what you would do.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We'll have to have part two one day.
Okay.